Hi everyone, this is Ramanuj here. Give me a moment. All right, we are ready to begin. Hi everyone, this is Ramanuj here from 𝗤𝘁𝘀𝗽𝘁. And I would love it if all of you can introduce yourselves in the chat. Okay. So who all are here? Please introduce yourselves in the chat. What do you do? Where are you logging in from? So to introduce myself, I'm Ramanuj Mukherjee. I'm CEO of 𝗤𝘁𝘀𝗽𝘁. We are going to talk about startups and tax havens today. Not something that is very common to talk about. Usually, I mean, you won't think that startups would be doing any kind of, would be setting up in tax havens, right? Tax havens are meant for big financial institutions and very rich people, ultra high net worth people, right? But really not for startups as such. Although, interestingly, VCs, the venture capitalists, they are always using, they are using tax havens, right, for incorporating their their funds, and even to bring in money in India. Everyone, PE funds, VC funds, they're all doing exactly that, right? So what do you guys do? Can you introduce yourselves in the chat? How many of you here are law students? How many are lawyers? What do you guys exactly do? Is there any startup here? How many of you here are startups? Write yes if you are founder of a startup or you work at a startup. Just write yes in the chat. Is there anyone who's from a startup? MBA graduate. Ashok is a MBA graduate logging in from Bangalore. Rohit is a LLB student at DU. Previous experience in pharma industry for 10 plus years. That's great, Rohit. Anybody else? Seema is a law student. What about the rest? What about Gautami, Nanda, Nimesh, Vikas, Shabnam? Please introduce yourselves. Quickly introduce yourselves in the chat and we can get started. All right. So let's start with today's presentation. Okay. Pros. This is basically for startups. Pros of whether to set up a startup in a tax haven and what are the benefits of that. So first, talk about what is tax haven. Tax haven is basically a place where foreigners may receive income or own assets without paying high rates of tax upon them. But in reality, it's not about just tax. There are many other benefits of tax havens. People are doing this also to hide information. A lot of times you want privacy, you want your assets to be not disclosed to the government, then of course you will do that, and there are good reasons to do so. For example, before the Second World War, around the world, many private citizens have been persecuted. So if you are wealthy, you have a lot of money, you are a very successful business person, you may want to secure some of your wealth outside the reach of your government. You can see what happened to Jack Ma, right? Jack Ma has disappeared, believed to be kidnapped by Chinese government, right? And nothing is known about his whereabouts, although he was the richest man in China. So you never know, right? So government may decide to come after you for one reason or the other, right? So so there is definitely good reasons for private citizens around them. Like over time, they realize that they need privacy from the government about what money they have and what assets they have. At least part of it, not all of it, then part of it, right? So in some havens, the tax relief that foreigners enjoy stems from the absence of like the usual taxations, right? Direct taxation, income tax, wealth tax, estate tax, gift tax, and all these taxes, right? So these taxes are not there in those jurisdictions. Then there are other places where it is, you know, it's not because of tax as such, but maybe they have such a rule that they have a strict rule of territoriality, that only income from our own territory will be taxed and foreign income will be exempt from taxation. And there are such things as well, such countries as well, like for example Dubai. In Dubai there is no income tax anyway, but there is VAT. Earlier it was completely tax free, but a couple of years back they introduced VAT, which is a consumption tax, right? And on consumption taxes also they have, if it is export, then it is zero rated. That is, you don't pay tax at all if it is anything related to direct or indirect export, right? So it is a very good thing for anybody doing business there, that you are not paying any tax on any international export, international work, right? So as per IMF, individuals have stashed 8.7 trillion in tax havens. There is more data which says even the amount is even more, and I'll tell you. Economist and lawyer James S. Henry's more comprehensive estimates yield an astonishing total of up to 36 trillion. So you can imagine, it is even trillion, not even billion, $36 trillion. Both assuming very different rates of return put global individual income tax losses at around $200 billion per year. So it is a big headache for governments and big economies around the world, that they are not getting, they're losing $200 billion in taxable income or any other taxes, right? They're losing that money. It is going into all these tax havens, and this money being put into tax haven is basically causing this much loss to the exchequers of all these countries around the world. Tax havens provide an escape route from financial regulations, disclosure, criminal liability, and more, right? So it's not just that you're not paying taxes. Also, if you are if you are operating for a certain country, they might have a lot of laws and rules about what you can do with your money. And for example, if like imagine Vijay Mallya, right? So imagine that Vijay Mallya has some money in some offshore jurisdictions in countries like Bahamas and British Virgin Islands and Mauritius and so on. So every asset that he has in India is being kind of seized by banks. Courts can order that, okay, this property has to be liquidated to pay for his debts of his companies and so on. But if he has money in some of these offshore jurisdictions, government may not even be able to accept liquidating such assets, right? So you can basically escape the Indian courts by putting your assets in such jurisdictions. So that is another example of what happens, which is also why tax havens have such a stigma about it. Primary beneficiaries of tax havens are large financial institutions. Every venture capital, private equity fund in the world, I can assure you, they're operating through tax havens. Okay, and big funds also, all hedge funds, everyone is using tax havens. And multinationals, all big multinational companies around the world, starting from Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, even the big four accounting firms, everyone is using and like, you know, even Apple, Google, Facebook, they're all using you know they're all using the tax haven system very much, offshore business system very much, saving trillions of dollars, like billions of dollars in taxes, right? Lot of money in taxes. They're saving hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes, and obviously this is generating profit for them, and the system tilts the playing field against small and medium enterprises, boosting monopolization. And basically the big companies are more competitive because of this tax haven system, right? And VC funds, for example, do this all the time. All the, you know, till the Mauritius route was alive. So Mauritius is a tax haven. Whoever was investing in India was routing their money through Mauritius, right? VC fund, all the VC funds were coming through Mauritius. Now, the question is that can startups also do this, right? This is an interesting question. That okay, all these big companies are doing, that is fine, but do you think even startups can do this, or is it like something which is only big companies can do? And that is a legitimate question to ask, because startups traditionally have not done it. Okay, but and basically also startups are very focused on a domestic market. So, you know, initial years they are trying to operate only domestically. They did not even think of, you know, going outside the country. So they may not have, mostly startups did not have an international income. It is very rare that a startup has international income, and all these tax haven business really can kick in when you have international income. When all your income is limited to one country, it probably does not make too much sense to do this. It is possible. There are creative ways in which you can take some money out of the country. It is possible, like Google does it for matter, Apple does it for that matter. So I'll give you an example what Google does. So Google has created in Ireland, it has created a corporate headquarter, and they have, like, Google's intellectual property patents, all the intellectual property portfolio is owned by this Irish company, Irish company, which is obviously Google's only, but this company owns all these intellectual property. So the money that is made in America, in USA by Google, that money, from that money, Google pays huge amounts of money, and from global business also, all other global businesses, they are making this payment in Ireland, which is a you know, a payment for, what do you call, it's a royalty payment for the patents, because intellectual property is owned by this Irish company. Google is from everywhere in the world is paying royalty to this company, and all of its corporate profits are being basically concentrated in this Irish headquarter, and in that country where income tax is much lower, it's around 10%. And by collecting money, they're basically saving on income tax in a big way. Google, right? And anybody can do this. Even you can do it. Of course, you will have to see double taxation treaties between India and Ireland, but it is actually a lot of times a viable thing that you move some of your income through royalty payments. Although there are a lot of laws, you have to see what are the laws. RBI has a lot of laws, for example, regarding this. Sorry. So you have to do it. You cannot break the laws, because governments are also becoming smarter and they're changing the laws all the time. Excuse me. So this is possible, right? So generally startups did not do this, because if they do not have international income, if they don't have international presence, what is the point in doing all this? But now that is changing a lot. Why is it changing? Because a lot of work is being done remotely, which means many of your people may be working internationally. Also, companies are becoming increasingly international in nature, because why not? It doesn't make any sense, right? You have an international market, and businesses are digital in nature. So imagine you have a factory. You cannot take the factory and go to another country, right? But if you are if you're selling software, your software can be located, you can sell it from anywhere, right? You don't have to sell it from India. It's not necessity. You can sell it from Dubai. You can sell it from Singapore. You can sell it from anywhere in the world. You may need to have some stuff in a certain country for sales, for marketing, but even that is not necessary, because your digital market, you might be able to sell digitally to Indians from a different country, right? Probably you'll want some presence even here in India. If you have a lot of business in India, you might want to have an office here, but you don't have to. All the income may not be here, and not all the operations may be here. So you might be able to, be in a lower tax jurisdiction where the income tax may be zero, where consumption tax may be zero or very low. Okay, where there may not be any capital gains tax, and there are so many other things I'll explain shortly, right? So this kind of huge advantage can be created, and this is happening primarily because businesses are now digital, and you can do so much digitally, and your people can be based remote, right? They can be working from anywhere. You can hire people. You don't have to even employ people. You can hire agencies. You can hire vendors who will do it for you, right? Around the world. So it basically changes everything. So do startups have to look for other ways while the biggest look the other way, while their biggest competitors benefit from lower taxation and differentiated rules? Not really. Slowly, even it is becoming normal for startups, and startups have started to realize that there are such opportunities. There is a stigma attached to tax havens because they have been often used by criminals and political elite, right? Corrupt politicians to hide their ill-gotten gains. So there is a lot of already some thing in the mind. So when you hear tax havens, don't you think like some shady business going on? Does it come to your mind? Yes or no? What do you guys think? Do you think there must be something shady if you hear tax havens? Does it ever come to your mind? Excuse me. Do you ever think that this might be some shady business? Yeah, right. That is how it is, because that's how media writes about it. However, the reach, and I'm going to tell you why it is legitimate and why tax havens are not going away anywhere. It's going to be around. Why, I'll explain to you. The rich and powerful across the world and all financial superpower countries are deeply involved in the tax haven system, making these stable and permanent fixtures of the international economy. Okay, how is that? Okay, the Tax Justice Network's Corporate Tax Haven Index, okay, ranks the top 3 tax havens in the world as British Virgin Islands, Bermuda, and the Cayman Islands, all British overseas territories, right? So British in their overseas territories created all these very intentionally, right? Because London has been a center of finance, and that is its claim to fame, right? Why is London famous? London is famous because it is a important financial center, international financial center, right? So they have created all these tax havens around the world because it is so good for their business, right? For good economic reasons. Same Tax Justice Network's Financial Secrecy Index ranks Switzerland, the United States, and Cayman Islands as the top 3 jurisdictions for private wealth. That is, your wealth is private. You can keep your wealth there, and no other government in the world will find out that you have money or you have wealth, you are holding wealth over there. Okay, and the offshore system is growing. It's not like going down. You might think that there is so much discussion happening, Panama Papers and all these tax scandals, right? So there might be, these people might be afraid, and they're, Switzerland had to change so many rules, governments giving pressure. So you might think that, oh, this offshore system must be dwindling. No, it's growing. And how fast it is growing, it is incredible, right? When one jurisdiction crafts a new tax loophole or secrecy facility that successfully attracts mobile money, because money is like, people will move from one jurisdiction to another the moment there is such things, right? Others copy or outdo it in a race to the bottom. Okay, so such laws are very much prevalent in around the world, and there are more tax havens getting created. That has contributed to a dramatic decline in average corporate tax rates, which have decreased by half from 49% in 1985 to 24% today. This is IMF data. For US multinationals, corporate profit shifting into US tax havens, sorry, not US tax havens, generally in tax havens, right, from US multinationals, okay, because they have been shifting corporate profit into tax havens. This has risen from 5% to 10% of gross profits in the 90s. Okay, this was only 5 to 10% in the 90s, to about 25 to 30% today by 2017. You can imagine how much it is growing. Some countries that enjoy a reputation as tax havens have cultivated it in order to attract wealth in their countries, right? So a lot of developing countries realize that. So for example, in India, after 1991, we have been changing a lot of laws to attract more and more FDI. But we can do so because we are a large market, we have a lot of people to buy products and all of that. But what is to be done by very small island nations? They don't have any such opportunity. Very small developing countries, right? They don't have such a big market. They don't have a workforce. They don't have all these facilities. So how are they going to grow? How are they going to attract foreign investment? They sometimes become this tax haven. This way they can then attract various activity, and they can attract a lot of money. If so much money is going to come into their banks, then obviously they can lend this money to to people in their country. Basically, it creates a lot of wealth in their country. So that is why becoming a tax haven is very profitable for these countries. But they are also under a lot of pressure from European Union, America, India, who are trying to tell them that no, don't do this, it is not good for, then we are losing tax money. And there is always international negotiation happening between these tax havens and the large economies, which are trying to bring them into line, and they can get blacklisted also if for not cooperating. Startups are increasingly realizing that they do not have to be left out, right? In other cases, not left out, right? Just one second, I have. Okay, so startups don't have to be left out, because startups can also participate. If it is so legitimate, the entire world is using it, all the VCs are using it, why should startups also not benefit and give themselves competitive advantage? So in some cases, the features that make a country a tax haven are merely a consequence of them having followed certain principles of taxation, such as that of strict territoriality in applying income taxation, but without the intention of establishing a tax haven. Okay, such countries are likely to consider the tax haven level derogatory, but they are attractive anyway, as they serve the purpose of tax saving for international businesses or even individuals sometimes. Like I was giving you the example of United States. I'll explain to you why United States is so lucrative, right? So I mean, in the United States, they have such a rule that they collect data from other countries about US residents, about their income abroad, but they do not give away any data. There is Oh, sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize. So, government of, so basically in the US, what happens is that the countries around the world want to get data of their resident if they have any income in the US. But US never shares any data with foreign countries of people who are resident in other countries and they have an income in the US or they have an asset in the US. This information is never shared by the US, and they have passed a law which prohibits them from sharing such information. Can you believe this? Right? It's crazy. Can you all guys hear me? Can you write yes if you can hear me? Am I audible to all of you? If you can hear me, just write yes in the chat. Okay, you guys can hear me. That's great. So a good example of a tax haven scenario, how it changes over time, is a good example of Mauritius and India. For decades, most of the FDI was routed through Mauritius, as it helped the investors to avoid income taxes thanks to a double taxation treaty between Mauritius and India. Right now, government of India noticed that the loss of taxes and renegotiated that treaty a few years back. Now no FDI is channelized through Mauritius anymore. Now Mauritius, 70% of there was a time when 70% of investment in India used to come through Mauritius. Now the same thing happened to the famous Singapore route also. Although Singapore route, there was some loophole there also, and that was also renegotiated by government. The tax treaty got renegotiated, correct? But even then, Singapore has now become the biggest destination because of other reasons. Out of all options, it is still the best. So amount of business activity carried out in tax havens is considerable, even though exact figures are not available. Right? India is a high tax country. So are the US and most European Union countries. Right? In fact, the new president of Joe Biden is expected to increase taxes on US citizens and businesses. There is huge pressure on him to do some changes in the law to start taxing this wealth which is there in the tax havens. Is there some way they can tax US companies? Even the money is in the US, in some tax haven. Can they still be taxed? Is it possible? And it is possible. There are some things that have been done like that have been done in the world, even otherwise. But it will be very interesting to see if the US is able to change its law to that extent. So far, there is no such signs. But let's see if Joe Biden will actually do that. So chances are high that more businesses will flock to tax havens. So that this is the problem. Now, if you start taxing people, then there is a high chance that many of those businesses will get out of USA altogether, and they will move out and go to like very low tax jurisdictions. This is already happening in the US. In fact, there are state taxes apart from federal taxes in the US, and a lot of companies are moving to jurisdictions with low state taxes. For example, people are moving from California and from New York in a big way. They are moving to states like Texas and Florida, where the taxes are much lower. Okay, so chances are high that if you increase taxes in US, people will move out to other countries altogether. As per a Morgan Stanley report in 2018, $23,000 millionaires left India from 2014 to 2018. 23,000 in 4 years. In 2019, they released another report saying that in 2018 alone, $6,000 millionaires left India, almost, right? 6,000. So imagine how many people are leaving. And why did they leave? If you remember, one of the things that happened after 2014 was introduction of GST, increasing of service tax. These things have been happening. 2020 reports have not come out because of the pandemic and all of that. We don't know. But we, for sure, even now, I can tell you, although Morgan Stanley has not done a report, I can tell you that more people are leaving India and going abroad, right? Is it illegal? It is not illegal. Is it illegal for Indians to leave India and go take residence in another country? What do you think? Yes, no, maybe. What do you guys think? Is it legal? Nobody's saying anything. What happened? The people who are watching this on YouTube, you guys can also respond, by the way. It is legal, right? So where are they headed? Where are these people headed, right? Most people are going to live in countries like US, Canada, and UK. These are the three big destinations. But do they take their money to those countries, right? Are their assets and their wealth and their holding companies, are they also sitting there? No. They are parking their wealth in places like Dubai, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Bahamas, and various Caribbean tax havens. In fact, even in India, in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, okay? So the same thing is happening with digital businesses that are expanding internationally, right? So imagine that you have a digital business and you are selling something. It can be software. Imagine that you are selling software. Let's say it is some software. Let's say you are making a tax related software like Clear Tax. Okay, let's say you have a software like this, or maybe you have a software which helps people to manage their work better, a productivity software, or something like Zoom, right? Now, is it necessary for you that you have to do all this out of India? Maybe you started the business in India, but is it necessary for you that you have to forever run this business out of India, especially when most of your users are outside India? Can someone tell me? Is it necessary? What stops you from setting up a company in Dubai and doing all your international sales out of Dubai, given that if you do that, then there will be no income tax. Second, it is export, so there will be no consumption tax. So will that be anything illegal to do? No, right? It's perfectly legal. I mean, you have to take care of certain things. You know, if you're moving intellectual property out of India, you have to see you're following the rules. But these things are possible, right? We know very well. So it is happening all the time, and digital businesses are very mobile, right? So what is fueling the tax haven trend in 2021? It is remote work, big time. Because you imagine, so how things were before is that, let's say I'm running, say I have a lot of India related business, right? And I would want to hire people in India, because if I go to Dubai, hiring people in Dubai will be much more costly, right? But this is a problem when I'm trying to run an office with a roof. Like, you know, it's like everyone has to work under the same roof kind of office, right? So that still kept people in these jurisdictions, in India, US, or wherever, right? But now I can run a business from US, and all my people who are working nobody may be in the US. They all may be in different countries, Bangladesh, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, India, spread. And I don't even have to have employees. I can possibly hire people in other countries, right, who are just, I have hired an agency. I hire a digital marketing agency in Bangladesh, and they might be doing the work. I might be hiring somebody in, agents in Singapore to manage my payroll or manage my website. Or in India for that matter. And basically, it is possible now for you to run a business remotely in such a manner that you are not really located anywhere for that matter, right? And you can choose exactly where you want to house your income, in which country it should come to, right? Because of remote work. It was never easier before, like this before, to shift your country, to shift your jurisdiction, tax jurisdiction. So people can now really move out from very fast. And this is exactly what happened during the pandemic in the US. Why did not people or companies shift out from California and New York to Texas before? Why didn't they do this in 2019, 2018? Because still there was a relevance of being in the Silicon Valley, there was a relevance of being near the Wall Street and so on. But that did not remain the case after the pandemic. Suddenly, it does not matter. Do you guys know where I am? Do you know, where do you guys guess where I am logging in from to take this webinar? Can you guess? Usually our office used to be in Delhi. So can you guess where I'm logged in from? Anybody here knows? Tell me in the chat. Do you know where I am right now? 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗀𝗃 is saying Dubai. Ashok knows. I'm in Ukraine. Okay, I'm in Ukraine today, and day after tomorrow I'll be in Tanzania, in Zanzibar. Okay, and I can go. I am CEO of a company with around 100 people, and I can go live anywhere I want in the world. Okay, as long as they'll give me visa, as long as I have the money, I can go and live anywhere and work from anywhere, right? So this is what is happening in digital businesses. High rates of and this is the true for all the other digital businesses also. High rates of GST and income tax in India compared to other countries. This is also a very important thing, right? So because Indian tax is so high, income tax is so high, GST is so high, right? So when I went to Russia for the first time, I was shocked. I thought everything is much cheaper than in India. And I started thinking that I thought India is very cheap. Why are things cheaper here? Then I realized that in India, we are paying 18% GST and there is like huge tax on all fuel. So we are paying a lot of tax on anything we buy and income tax and all of that. But over there, they have very low income tax and they have 4% of VAT. That's it. And that is so low. And because of that, everything feels so cheap. Like if you are going and eating out in a restaurant, you will find everything much cheaper than in India. And this is happening, like, because of the very high rates of GST and income tax, everything, the government gets a big pie of all the economic activities. And there are other problems also in India. One big problem, why do we have such a high tax rate, and why do other countries have less tax, right? One thing is that in India, base of income tax is very small. Very few people pay income tax. 1%, 2% of the entire country pay income tax, right? Very rich people also don't pay income tax. Rich farmers, there are farmers who are all crore-pratis in India. They have assets worth crores, 10 crores, 20 crores, acres of land, right? And they don't pay any income tax. They might be earning in crores, but still they don't pay any income tax. They don't even have to file income tax return even. Okay, so because of this, only few people paying income tax. They are paying very high level of income tax, and government is not able to reduce taxation. Many Indian businesses cater entirely to foreign businesses and customers. Why would they want to pay very high taxes for doing business from India, right? Workforces and digital businesses are incredibly mobile today. Okay, so just think of any business. So if it is there are physical businesses which you cannot move out. For example, you cannot move out a Uber or Ola from India, right? You cannot do that. Yes or no? Do you think it can be done? No. But can you move out a portion of Zomato's business out of India? The app can be housed outside India, right? And you can make payment online to a website, and you can receive money in INR. None of that you can stop, right? And there are many other businesses, right? Imagine so many other businesses are there. They can very well, be present outside India also for their international business, especially. If not for, do you think Zomato is running their Dubai business, London business out of India? No, they have their companies over there, which is which will be the operating country in those countries. So businesses moved out rapidly from California and New York. I mentioned this already. During the pandemic, businesses can easily move from high tax jurisdictions to low tax ones. Okay, so can you think of some examples of this where businesses have moved out from high tax jurisdiction to low tax ones? Any of you know anything? Any ideas? There are some well-known examples. Like I said, Google, right? Google, Facebook, Apple, they all have Irish headquarters where they are holding a lots of profits. Flipkart to Singapore. Many startups in India, they are in Singapore. Okay. And we'll explain why. So Singapore, Dubai, these are some of the best places for Indians to incorporate, especially if they have international business. Okay, so what are some of the well-known tax havens around the world? So we are not talking about India right now, talking generally about the well-known startups around the world. British Virgin Islands, Taiwan, of all places, Jersey. Taiwan, also a small country, need to attract capital. How do they do it? So they created very friendly laws for attracting foreign investment. Jersey is not even a country; it is a territory, overseas territory of England, of UK, and they have this territory between in the English Channel between France and England, and this is a major tax haven. Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Samoa, right? It's an island country. Liechtenstein in Europe, Curacao, an island country. Malta is an European tax haven. Lot of shipping companies incorporate here. In Liechtenstein also. Luxembourg, Cyprus, Seychelles. Seychelles is in Indian Ocean next to Africa, near Madagascar. You might have seen it on the map sometimes, right? But these are international tax havens, and tax havens are not the same for two countries. Okay, because what is a great tax haven for European Union or Germany or France, that may be a terrible tax haven for India, because there may not be a favorable bilateral tax treaty or double taxation treaty may not be there, and that DTA, double taxation treaties, it depends, like whether there may be loopholes made into the bilateral into the double taxation treaty itself. So all of that really matters. So you have to see which tax haven suits which country. So which are the preferred tax havens for Indians, right? So between 2007 and 2015, estimated 62.9 billion, about rupees 4 lakh crore, was held in tax havens by Indians. That's about 3.1% of the country's GDP in 2015. Over 53% of this Indian wealth is now held closer home in Asian tax havens like Hong Kong, Macau, Singapore, Bahrain, Malaysia. The other popular choice is Switzerland, which accounts for approximate 30%. Though since 2015, things have probably drastically changed. There's a lot of focus on Switzerland. Nobody puts their money in Switzerland anymore because all this Swiss bank myth and this Swiss bank account, all this media talks, right? People are afraid of keeping their money in Switzerland. While media reports are very unkind, it is likely that such offshore wealth was accumulated through legal means. Illegal stuff government can take action on, but if it is accumulated through legal means, there is no violation of international tax laws or all of that, then they are not, they are not merely proceeds of corruption and tax evasion. There is nothing the government can do. So they are unable to bring such money back. No one is asking me, am I an economist? No, I am a lawyer. Okay, I'm a lawyer, but I'm a non-practicing lawyer. I teach people law. This is why and I'm CEO of a company. So this is why, despite a lot of political shenanigans, such money could not be brought back to India by the government. Okay. The typical key features of offshore tax havens are they have friendly tax laws which enable individuals and or companies to minimize or eliminate their tax liability. They allow foreign citizens to register offshore companies which are given preferential tax treatment and are not subjected to local corporate income taxes. They offer a higher degree of privacy in that the details of corporate ownership of offshore companies are not publicly available. Okay. They have fewer tax information exchange agreements. So there are a lot of, most countries have tax information exchange agreements with other countries so that tax evasion does not happen. But obviously, if you want to be a tax haven country, you don't do this, right? So most importantly, they're completely legal. It has to be, otherwise you will not do this, right? They have to be completely legal despite the negative publicity which they have received in the past. So how does this work? Okay. The best way to access the benefits of an offshore tax haven is to register a corporate entity or other type of financial vehicle within the jurisdiction. It can also be sometimes a trust. Okay, for individuals, you'll go and create a trust. Corporates can also do so, but normally you will create a corporate entity only. This is usually a fairly simple process, as tax havens are specifically designed to attract offshore investment and company formations. So they make it very, very easy to do. They will charge a fee, but beyond that, it will be very easy. The most common corporate vehicles to use are either an offshore company or an offshore trust. But very important, what people do these days, they don't even create an offshore company. They create a local company. So it's actually have a local business, and it also has an international business. So for example, if you are running a software company in India, or maybe you're running a digital media company in India, or maybe you're running a digital media agency in India, right? So if you want to if you want to operate from Dubai, you will not just operate a shell company over there, right? Not just an offshore company. You will set up a company over there which will be doing business in Dubai also and doing international business also, right? So it will be doing Dubai business and international business, and that makes it very hard for tax authorities to tell it apart or create any kind of problem. Offshore companies are not really the most preferred today, because the future is such that these big economies are fighting hard to recover their taxes. So it is always better that instead of doing an offshore company, you can do an actual business over there, because it is very much possible. These are lucrative markets. United Arab Emirates is a lucrative market. So is Singapore. So is Hong Kong. These are lucrative markets, and you can very well, you don't have to set up just offshore companies there, right? So offshore asset protection trusts are widely used for estate planning by wealthy individuals, for planning, estate planning benefits, unparalleled asset protection, tax reductions, and a high degree of confidentiality. So let me give you an example. Let's say you are selling a software from India to foreign countries. You pay GST on what you sell normally, okay? Although if you are exporting it and the government deems it to be an export, valid export, then it will be zero rated and you can get back the GST you have paid. But that is actually quite difficult. Like, was the service, what was the point of service? Was it in India? I mean, you would never know whether you would get the benefit or not. You definitely pay income tax, right? What if you set up a company in Qatar or Dubai instead, where there is no income tax and there is no consumption tax? In Dubai, there is a 5% consumption tax, but if you are doing international business, there is no consumption tax also, right? Singapore, for instance, is a low tax jurisdiction compared to India and a preferred gateway to Southeast Asian countries. So when you are going in Dubai, okay, or you are going to Singapore, you are not just going there. Like I said, it's not just a tax management strategy. You can also access that market, right, which is a very good market for Indian businesses, right? So if you are selling software from India, if you are able to sell this software in India, there's a high chance that there's a market for the same software in Dubai or in Singapore also, right? You can sell to businesses there. So if you are doing that, then, and not only in that only one city, you can, or that city nation, you can actually start there and slowly you can expand in the region. So if you are in Middle East, if you're in Dubai, you might be able to access the entire MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, or you might be able to access the entire Middle East at least. And if you're in Singapore, then you might expand into the rest of Southeast Asia. Just 1 second, please excuse me. Right. So Singapore, I will explain in shortly, right? So let me explain about Singapore actually before I move forward. What is the benefit of being in Singapore? Why people are crazy about being located in Singapore? Why are so many Indian companies incorporating in Singapore? Anybody has any idea what is it? Because they have income tax, right? It is unlike Dubai, where there is no income tax. Singapore has income tax. So why would Indians prefer to set up their holding company, and for their international business they'll set up in Singapore? Like you said, Flipkart is in Singapore. So by the way, when Flipkart was sold, okay, do you remember when Flipkart got sold for a lot of money? Walmart bought Flipkart, right, for a huge amount of money, right? So do you think Indian government got tax from it? No, Indian government got no tax from it. Why? Because Walmart did not buy the company in India. They bought its parent company in Singapore. So all the $20 billion, I think, or whatever, I don't remember. How much was it? 20 billion or something? 20 billion, 30 billion, I don't remember. That money was paid in Singapore for the shares of the Singapore parent company. And by buying that company, automatically Walmart got control of Indian company, right? $16 billion. So do you know what is capital gains tax? When the valuation of a company grows and you sell and you make a profit on that, right? You're supposed to pay income tax on the profit you make from selling a company. Yes, no, maybe. Right? In India, if it happened in India, then this $16 billion, let's say, I don't know, whatever was the money they spent to build the company, there was a profit, right? So if the profit was $10 billion, then they would have paid 3 billion, or I don't know how many billions as income tax, as capital gains tax, right? But they did not have to pay it because it was in Singapore, and in Singapore there is no capital gains tax, by the way. No capital gains. Income tax, yes. Capital gains, no capital gains. Isn't that amazing for somebody who's trying to do business in India, right? So if you set up your company first in Singapore and then you're doing your Indian business here, you can avoid capital gains by doing this, right? By the way, Vodafone tried to do the same thing and got into a lot of trouble with the Indian government, but they won the cases finally, and Singapore Supreme Court of India said yes, they were right to do so, right? So Singapore is not only capital gains free, and so that is only one part of it, by the way. The other part of this is that if Flipkart decides to do business apart from India also in Malaysia, in Singapore, right? It can do so by running out of Singapore. Basically, they will run that business out of Singapore and not out of India, right? So that way they will, if they, they can avoid a lot of taxation on income of that also. So one thing that is very important to understand, that there are notorious tax havens like Samoa, British Virgin Islands, and some island countries. They are notorious as tax havens, and then there are real economies, like where you actually want to go to business. And for startups, it is a great idea that you are going to a real economy and not to a notorious tax haven. There are several problems with these notorious tax havens. Okay, blacklisting is one of the problems, that they get blacklisted sometimes. Sometimes they are so small and they are literally bullied by big countries to sharing data because they don't have a choice. Their banking systems are cut off and so on. So they get blacklisted. So your money is at stake if there is blacklisting and all of that. It can destabilize. Also, sometimes if you're operating from this kind of a notorious tax haven, which is not really a business place, but only exists for that, like if you're running it out of Seychelles and so on, right? There will be higher scrutiny when you're doing international business, right? Even payment gateways will scrutinize you before sending money to you. Okay. Sometimes your money will get stuck in different places. Government will stop the payment just to investigate what is the matter. Why are you getting this money? Is it some tax evasion scheme, etc. Right? So there is a much higher scrutiny if you're operating from certain. You can set up very easily. So you have to be careful. You can really easily set up, but you don't want to do such things. It doesn't make sense to take all this headache. Okay, then your payments getting stuck. I have given this example before. For example, once I was getting a payment from a lawyer in Macau. Now, Macau is Chinese territory, former British territory, again, just like all the other places. And it is a tax haven, right? And it's a tax haven. It has a lot of gambling and all of that. So Macau, someone from Macau was paying money to us in 𝗏𝘁𝗀𝗃. They were buying a course from there, and the money was just not coming. I mean, it was so difficult for them to send the money to us, and we could not. It was so. I mean, payment just doesn't come from there. Imagine, like, if you are in such, you cannot go run a business from Macau doing international business. It will be next to impossible because you cannot receive international payments so easily over there. There can be political or economic instability in such countries. You go into a small island country, tomorrow there is some military coup. It happened in Maldives, if you remember. There are so many coups happening in Maldives, right? And governments changing, coming up with new rules and regulations. Some government is India friendly, someone is China friendly. You never know what is going on, right? So a new company can come and create problems for you, right? So can change the laws, change the rules, create problems for you, can extort money from you for that matter, because there is no relying on such countries' court system or government. You never know. Leaks, Panama Papers, you might be knowing. Panama is a small country near the Panama Canal, just around the Panama Canal. And this is a country which is a tax haven and notorious tax haven. And then there was a leak from Panama called Panama Papers, where even a lot of Indian people, movie stars and politicians got implicated by those leaks. And it may not be illegal, right? For all you know, that they might have chosen to legally, I can pay taxes on my income and send the money and hold it in a tax haven. Nobody can save it. Nobody can stop me from doing so. But there may be legal consequences and reputational consequences if you cannot justify what you're doing and you're holding money and there's a leak or something happened. In 2008, Germany investigated a Liechtenstein banking trust that many citizens were using as a way to evade local taxes. This investigation was created from a local leak. In the UK, I'll tell you a secret. Okay, in the UK, a lot of people who are running universities, they are all universities are bought and run by Netherlands-based companies or Netherlands-based trusts. Why? Because of same reason, taxation and information exchange, privacy, all these are there. And because of that, people do this. So in UK, but this is legal, right? It is according to the laws of England, according to the laws of Netherlands, right? And why this happens? It is happening because the laws are there and people are using these legal loopholes to find more tax efficient structures. So you can do it in a way which is illegal, or you can do it in a way which is legitimate and safe. So you have to see what is safer, right? You might end up paying some taxes. You might be spending more money to incorporate or whatever to do business in that country. There may be more due diligence to set up in that country. But at least you know that your money is safe. Your policy, is not going to change every other day, right? There is some certainty about things. And this is very important when you're doing business. You don't want uncertainty. So as a startup, you certainly don't want uncertainty of any kind, right? So you have to keep this in mind. Your goal is not hiding money, but efficient tax structuring. And it is possible to do so legally and go to tax jurisdictions with reputation, right? And also go to places where, low tax jurisdictions, maybe like Google and Facebook chose Ireland for global headquarters. It could be Netherlands, Dubai, Singapore, or Luxembourg. Like good idea to opt for respectable tax jurisdictions with stable governments and a history for good governance. This is very, very important. Okay, so what are the top destinations for Indian startups looking to save taxes? One is Singapore. In Singapore, if you're in Singapore, first of all, the flat rate of corporate tax is 17%. Okay, 17. That is much lower than India's tax, income tax also. For example, below a certain size, you pay 25%, and above a certain size, you pay 25%. In 25% and 30% in India. In Singapore, it's 17% for everyone. Not only that, there is no dividend distribution tax, there is no capital gains tax and all of that. So which is also a big advantage. That's why people set up companies over there. Although they have to pay income tax, they do not mind, right? Other Middle East countries, oh, Dubai is the other one. Dubai has a VAT and 5%, right? But on international business, nothing. So people run businesses where they pay that 5% on the local business when they are doing local business locally. Imagine you have a digital media agency. You might be running it out of Dubai. If you run it out of India, you will be paying 18% taxes. But if you're running it out of Dubai, right? So you'll be paying 5% taxes for Dubai business, and for international business, you'll pay nothing, right? For unless there is a tax payable in that country where you are providing the services, there may be a tax there, so you might be paying that. But more importantly, you will be paying no income tax. So many people choose to run such services businesses from Dubai rather than running it from another country. Okay. There are some other Middle East countries also, Qatar, Bahrain. These also have very good rules and laws for keeping your wealth there, and they are not, these countries do not rely much on taxes for their economies as of now. That may change in the future, but as of now, this is how it is. So before there must be questions you guys have. I'll be happy to answer all the questions that you have at this point. I also want to show you the other workshops I have upcoming, right? So let me show you some of the workshops I have. Workshops and webinars that you might want to attend, right? I am doing a workshop on expanding your business to Dubai, how to plan, make the right calls, and navigate the legal processes. This is on 10th. Okay, so how many of you would like to attend this session? Anybody would like to attend this session? Estonia residency system work in a similar manner. Personally, it can make a difference. Yes, personally, it can make a difference. Because if you are not a tax resident in India, for example, so you may not have to, but there are issues though. I mean, you may not have to pay taxes, except if you're earning the money in India, you may still have to pay and so on. Estonia is not a tax haven, and I'm not talking, I mean, what we talked about does not apply to Estonia as such. Okay. So if you'd like to attend, here is the link. I'm shared it in the chat. Please register yourself for 10th, or the workshop I'm doing on 10th, right? We have a workshop also on 11th, which is on how can Indian lawyers and company secretaries help MNCs in market entry related legal work. So some other foreign businesses are entering in India. How do you help them to enter? This is also market related work. This is also interesting. So anybody wants to attend that, I have shared the link. You can register here. Okay. There is one more thing you might find interesting. Webinars. Let's take a quick look at the webinars we have. This might be interesting. You know, if you are running your business in multiple countries, then how do you keep tab on all of them? How do you manage the whole system? So our head of content will be doing this session, Komal. So you can join her for this session also. All right. Anything else quickly? So all right. So I would like to, how many of you would like to keep in touch in future? I would love to keep in touch with you on Twitter. Here is my Twitter profile. If any of you would like to stay in touch, please let me know. If there's any question also, please tell me. This is the time to ask me questions. if a company is from Dubai and sells services to Indians, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Why not? You can run a company in Dubai and you are selling services in India. You'll have to probably pay, you probably will have to pay GST, okay, on that. It depends whether, I mean, there are certain factors you have to look at whether you have to pay GST or not. You might have to pay GST, but at least you'll be saving on income taxes. That is a fact, right? Okay, so how will you rate today's session? What did you learn from this? Did you enjoy the session? Okay, so for those of you who want to learn more, I would like to suggest a course that we have. You can take a look at this course. Actually, we run this course with a top US university, Webster University. Here is the course link, and you can check it out if you want to join. I mean, at least read through this. Here we teach people all these international business laws, how to enter into new markets, China, how to enter into markets like Brazil, Singapore, UK, US, how to set up businesses there, how to manage these things, right? So you might be wanting to learn these things. It's very interesting. This is the course that we have. Okay, definitely check it out. If you like today's session, this might be a very useful course for you to build up interesting career options. So imagine you can help startups and businesses to migrate or to set up international expansion, set up international subsidiaries, set up holding companies. So we teach and how to do the compliances, how to plan it, how to differentiate between different systems, all of that, right? And it is a diploma. You will get a diploma from a US university, Webster University. So it is a globally recognized credential. I would strongly recommend that you check this out. Okay. Ashok has already joined. Okay, awesome. That's great. Yeah, we are planning to add Netherlands and other places also over time. I mean, my plan is that by end of 2021, we'll have 20 economies covered, not just these. European Union, South Korea, more countries, Nigeria. We're planning to do that. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Okay. Definitely check out the course, everyone, and at least download the free material, go through it. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye bye. Have a great night. Yeah, even if you're a LLB student, you can do this, Abhishek. Not a problem. There are great opportunities in this kind of work, especially if you want to work internationally, work in companies and law firms abroad. This knowledge will be of big help. Okay. All right, Abhishek, and all right, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Have a great night. It is early evening here in Ukraine, but